Tetepu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu with another exciting video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about mind control pendulums, Egregores, and Tulpas. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, if you want to know more about my spiritual teachings, you can scroll down below and click on any one of the links and download a free ebook. You can start reading it right away. And if you feel a little bit more inspired, you can become a Patreon supporter and take that next step. It'll give you access to instructional videos on the esoteric and spiritual. You can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5 or $20 per month. And you'll get videos on how to summon spirits, how to put together a magical amulet, how to astral project, how to do self-hypnosis, and working with the oracles, and so much more. So become a Patreon supporter today. You can cancel at any time. Also, don't forget to share this video with family and friends so that we can spread the word and change the vibration of this planet to one that's more conducive to our liking of love and harmony. So Haru Nefer, thank you for tuning in today. We have a very interesting broadcast for you. And I want to talk about the means and methods of mind control by the ruling elite, because I think too many in the conspiracy theory arena, they are engaged in Cartesian logic, which is thinking that everything, or I can say they're left brain thinkers because they think everything has to be done from a physical means and method. And that's simply not true. The ruling elite, those that you'll never see, and I'm not talking about people like George Soros or Bill Gates, and I mean those guys are up on the pyramid of the elite, but they're not at the top. The top are the people that you will never ever see, and they will not expose themselves. They are the wizard behind the curtain, and it's very important that they stay hidden and not reveal their true identity and their true essence. And the one thing that we need to understand, as I was alluding to, is the fact that they don't use physical means to accomplish their goals. They have taken over the planet. And yes, the planet has been already captured and insulated from higher levels of thinking, higher levels of spirituality. And this is done so that they can control and manipulate the population. And it is done so through means of black magic, sorcery, things of that nature. And I want to kind of take revisit the subject in a way, because I did talk about this a couple of years ago, but I think it's very important for us to kind of gauge what's happening, where it's going, because we're too wrapped up in physicality. We look at things from that Cartesian logic, one-to-one correlation, and we don't understand that there are indirect paths that'll take you there. And these indirect paths are used by the ruling elite. You understand? See, in ancient Kemet and ancient Egypt, back in antiquity, they didn't need, especially in the Mayan culture, Chinese culture, they didn't need a police force. They didn't need legislation and rules, because it was a type of theocracy, meaning that the people from birth were indoctrinated into a spiritual way of life. And this spirituality put them in check. They elevated themselves to the level of God, which was the goal, especially for the pharaohs. And because of that, there was a type of culture that put parameters around. So, and they understood clearly through osmosis that you don't do certain things. You don't steal, you see. You don't have unwanted babies. You don't engage in capitalism. You don't hoard food or wealth and think that's okay. In fact, the whole society was based upon the principles of the goddess Ma'at. Now, what does that mean? The closest thing that we can see as an example of this is if we were to go through, like New York City at one time went through what we call a blackout, where we lost power. And then you saw the depravity. You saw how humankind resorted back to its base nature, which was animalistic. Raiding, hoarding, committing crimes, rape, pillaging. This is because the people have not been indoctrinated to a higher spiritual system. And I don't mean a higher spiritual system that you see in the Christian church or the Nation of Islam or in Catholicism. Those are only external means to curb your behavior. And they don't really result in real change. You see, right brain cultures, which are whole brain, integrated brain cultures, relied heavily upon meditation and trance to ferret out the negative aspects within your being. Even the forms of entertainment encompass the idea of raising your vibration to a higher level. We bear witness to this by looking at the ancient Egyptian papyri. We see that their stories, there's no separation between science. There's no separation between science and religion, science, and entertainment. These all were interwoven into one. Because that's what whole brain thinkers do. They see the relationship between things. They see the commonality between things. Whereas in this society, we elevate the left brain and we're only looking at things and how they're separate and different, which has given rise to endless factions and debates, labeling, defining, and which produces racism, sexism, and a whole host of other things. This is why the world is in the way it is today, because you see God as a separate entity from yourself. God is not separate from yourself. God is within you. And in reality, there is no external world or outside world. That's an illusion. That's Maya. But anyway, I want you to think about that. Because that should be the goal of every individual, is to elevate themselves to the level of Osir, God. And we don't even have to use Osir as the archetype. We can say Buddha, we can say Jesus, as long as the process to getting there is correct. See, the way that these religions fail, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Muslims, religions, or whatever you want to call it, the reason why they fail is because of the process that they use to get to that higher level. Jesus is a noble idea to aspire to be like. So is Buddha. But what is the process to getting there? It's always usually an external means of reading a scripture, committing it to memory, preaching from the pulpit. When the truth is, behavior is controlled by the right brain. And the only way to access the right brain is through trance or hypnosis or meditation or hypnotherapy, however you want to call it. This is why most of these religions have been set up to keep you away from meditation, from hypnotherapy. And they use all types of means to do it. Hollywood propaganda. They talk about, especially in their sermons, how meditation is the gateway to the devil. But this is how things have been set up by the ruling elite to put these religions, and these religions were created by the ruling elite. They were created by that. Well, I almost gave it away. I'm not going to tell you who's at the top of the pyramid, but it was put together by those at the top of the pyramid to enslave you, to keep the population passive. Look at the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan led 2 million man marches that did absolutely nothing. He's controlled resistance. He's there to pacify you. Look at the Pope. Look at the ministers and the mega churches. They're there to pacify you. None of them have called for revolution, which there should be a revolution, because we have enough documented evidence to prove that our government has failed the people. But somehow, when those who stormed the White House, you thought were insurgents. No. You thought were terrorists. Were they really? Or did they recognize the fact that something's wrong with our government when their votes don't count? But I digress. Think about that. You see, when you don't operate from the right brain, you think everything has to deal with external. You go to university and they tell you to study from a book, commit it to memory, and there'll be a test on that. You have your midterm exam and how well you commit it to memory, how well you check off the boxes. If you get the right box checked off, you get your degree. But what you don't understand is that real learning is about learning in a state of trance. Because ISIS is trance. That's where real learning comes from. And it also, one of the reasons why I never did good in school, eventually I did. But when I started out early, I could not adapt because I still retained my memory from ancient Kemet, Egypt. I knew I was born then in a previous life. And I knew that when the professor would stand at the head of the class and teach, that was not the right way of teaching. And we listened to what he was disseminating was not the right way of learning. So, Hetepu Rayan, thank you. Now, I learned later in life that there are various reasons why people excel in school and some don't. Some are missing really essential vitamins and minerals that will help them to process information better. And I'm not going to get into the full scope of what I call, and I developed a program called accelerated learning based on the Russians' research. And the Russians took this and locked this information away so the rest of the world couldn't get it because they had discovered how to tap into the subconscious mind and produce geniuses through accelerated learning. But one of the things I learned was that a lot of these kids, especially from the inner cities, they're nutritionally deficient, which is causing cognitive problems, the way they process information. But then they're looked at something is wrong with them. When you come from poverty, you don't have a good diet. And it was a couple of years ago, I remember sitting there, and it happened again because I actually stopped taking it. I remember, because I'm in the tech field, right? So I'm on a conference call, and I'm talking to three people. One is from, he's my tech director. The other one's a creative director. The other one's account director, and the other one's a client. And they're asking questions of me. And I notice I'm giving them answers like really, really quick. And I'm giving them dates, facts, numbers. And I was like, whoa, what's happening to you, Qesankh? I mean, you usually are okay, but you're not this good. So I went back and I kind of thought about what's going on. And it happened that entire week. And I remembered that I was taking certain supplements, which we call nootropics. And I was like, so that's what's going on. And I forgot how effective the nootropics were, you know? And this is part of whole brain thinking when you start looking at other factors that can impact you. Anyway, this is going to be a weird broadcast, so don't go, stay tuned. So I began my study of nootropics and trying to perfect, the right formula for accelerated learning. What I advise for you is to check out the two I'm going to prescribe. Humprazine A, and here it's right there. Okay. And this one is for learning and memory. The next one is vinpostcatine. I'm sorry, vinpostcatine. I keep mispronouncing it. And this one is for cognitive performance. So I was taking these two, and my cognitive performance, my memory went through the roof. And I was like, whoa, whoa. So everybody who is signing up for my accelerated program, I was like recommended that they take these supplements. It will truly help them. And I'm not sure if you look at the latest statistics, but in regards to Black males in school, most of them read on an 8th grade level. And that's really, really poor in terms of performance. But we're not to blame them because they're not at fault. It's the system that we have to look at. The system we have to look at. But anyway, you're actually right. Lion's mane is very good. That is a very good one. Side note, I love toys. So I'm always getting the latest thing. So I had to have I've never had it. I've always tried to find a good one. I'd had to have a Chucky doll. So I finally got a Chucky doll and I put it up and my mate was like, get that thing out the house. She was totally serious. She said it was talking in the middle of the night. I said, no, it wasn't. You're just making it up to get it out. So consequently, there's a fight. So I have to get rid of Chucky. And this is the Chucky doll here. So I think I may sell him on eBay because she's very adamant about him going. She doesn't like horror films. When I first took her to her first horror movie, she covered her eyes. I said, hey, I paid a ticket for this film. You better watch the film, So I've always loved Chucky movies. So unfortunately, I don't think I could keep him, because I guess he's scary and all that. So just something to let you guys know. Hopefully I can talk her into it because I was thinking about purchasing the other doll, Tiffany, and maybe she'll let me keep the Chucky. But let me get on to the subject at hand. Okay. Before people think I'm nuts. Which is the Pendulums, the Egregores, and the Tulpas. Okay, who's that? Is that the Wandering Sage? Yeah, Chucky, my boy. Say hi, Chucky.
A true classic never goes out of style. I'll be back. I always come back.
Okay.
You do know who I am, and if you know what's good for you, you are going to love, honor, and obey.
Okay, so it does talk. So she was right. So we'll put Chucky away for now. All right. Anyway. Yeah. She doesn't like scary things. That bothers her. Okay. All right. Let's get down to business. I want to talk about this subject because it's very important. Because this is not to condemn a one group or another, but Black people are right brain, predominantly right brain, and white people are left brain. And the ancient cultures, the Mayan culture, Chinese culture, Egypt, Ethiopian Empire, Atlantis, were built by integrated whole brain thinkers. And because of that, we saw that there were forces in the universe that can control individuals, that can control who we are. If you want to put it on a very basic level, we can look at astrology, where your time that you're born, the place that you were born, the region on the earth, or Gaia, determine your natal traits in a way. But what we are not aware of is that these individuals, the ruling elite, which are less than 1% of the population of the planet, who control 99% of the population, use occult means in this control method. And one thing that they have done is and I wrote this in a book I kind of published, is that they created racism. And racism is a pendulum. It's an Egregore that indoctrinates people into this ideology through a download, controls and manipulates them. Now, Rayanne brought up a very, very good point that I need to address about that, because many people have asked a lot of questions, but she's the first one that I saw that had actually brought this topic up, which is that you cannot battle with a pendulum on Egregore. If you feel that you're under its control and manipulation, trying to get out from under it only gives it more power. It feeds it. You understand? And one way or another, you're controlled by an Egregore. There are Egregores that can, make you millions of dollars. There are those that could cast you into the pit of hell. They want you to be under their guise and under their manipulation. That's what they do. And this, if we take a really close look at what we call culture, fads, or what have you, these things are not so much organic, but they're created by think tank institutions like Tavistock, the Council on Foreign Relations, Rockefeller Foundation, and they're created as pendulums through rituals. And then when the population starts to buy into it, it makes the Egregore of the pendulum stronger. And you can call it a spirit, whatever you want. It makes it stronger. And then it's an intelligent entity that goes out there and it starts looking for people that it can manipulate and control and feed it. And that is the danger. That is the danger that we find ourselves in. When we look at things like black on black crime, I want you to consider something. And we must look at this. We must look at this. How is it possible that we have black on black crime, right? But yet we have like people like George Zimmerman walking around, the KKK holding their rallies, Grand Wizard still doing his thing, and they be untouched. Police officers who shoot innocent people on the street, and the jury lets them go scot-free. How can we justify a population that says they want to be free, but take no direct action against these individuals? George Zimmerman is signing autographs. He goes to white supremacist rallies and signs autographs and sells things. But yet, if you go to Chicago, it's like, I think it has the highest murder rate in the country. How is that possible that we have these young men not go after Emmett Till's murderers? The old woman who told a lie, said Emmett Till looked at her, whistled at her. She's still alive. She admitted she lied. But yet rappers can talk about offing each other, how big and bad they are, but no one touches these white supremacists. That is mind control. That is mind control through remote control. You see, we think mind control. I talked to an individual who thought he was so scholarly and he knew everything. He was saying that, yes, you turn on the TV and you're susceptible to the mind control. You go out and you see these geometric shapes and you're susceptible to mind control. I'm like, no. Mind control can go in many, many different forms. You have not addressed the Tulpas, the Pendulums, and the Egregores, because they are the ones that caused the wars, the conflicts. You think Hitler, let me explain it. Let me break it down to you. You think Hitler was doing his Nazi rallies and burning books and burning the cross just for Nazi allegiance? No, he was feeding an Egregore so that Germany could rise up as a superpower, and it did. And Germany had ties to Margaret Sanger and to Nazi scientists through Operation Paperclip were given asylum by the Catholic Church. And they went and worked for NASA to develop high technology rockets and other things. And they went into different factions of government. There's an old footage of a Klan rally in Washington, D.C., a massive Klan rally. Go Google it. film footage of politicians, lawyers, CEOs in Washington in the 1920s. This tells you what we're facing. This tells you what's going on. And I'm telling you, it's not going to come through changing legislation, through tolerance, through Black Lives Matter, because the Black Lives Matter was controlled resistance created by George Soros to funnel money into the Black community for the LGBTQ RFUP XZY group so that they can depopulate the number in Black America. Margaret Sanger, she did it. She did the same thing through the Black church and through Planned Parenthood. When that didn't work, they had to look at other means to control the population, which was through feminism, indoctrination of feminism, first, second, third wave feminism. But remember, this is not about an ideology that you go to the university to study, although it's taught in the university. It is about an entity that controls us. And it makes me almost laugh when people says, no, my mind is free. No, you're not. You are controlled by an Egregore. It may not be a nasty, evil Egregore. It could be an Egregore that's giving you insight and wisdom. There are many different types of pendulums and Egregores. But the fact of the matter is, they exist and they control us in one way, shape, or form. Now, there was a famous scientist and occultist who talked about creating in response to these negative Egregores, creating positive Egregores. But then the idea of morality comes into play, because you have to ask yourself, well, who said it's, that you are the one to create what we call moral Egregores? Who are you to say what is moral and what is right and what is wrong? That's a very good question, But he kind of put that forth, saying maybe we can counteract those Egregores by creating our own. So that's something just to think about. That not everything that you see going on has a physical cost to it, meaning that it's not something about how people are indoctrinated through a lecture, through reading a book, No, something else is going on. You see, let's trace this back. When they want the population, and I've always said this, that the ruling elite is looking 100, 200 years down the line. They're looking at AI now. They're looking at technology can integrate with the mind, which is their way of saying mind control. But I want you to understand that they have long-term thinking. And before they put out their books, their papers, they're doing their rituals to create these spirits, these entities. So these entities can become autonomous. One of the first rules of the Egregore is to protect itself, to survive. So they create these Egregores. One of the ones that they create that are the most powerful is racism. And many of these Egregores' job is to pit one group against another, whether it's to start battles, to start political rifts, or to start large-scale wars. Hitler was an occultist, an evil occultist. But we're not taught that in school. We're only taught that, hey, we're only taught that, hey, everything has a physical component. That's why when you read ancient Egypt, they never get into, they'll tell you the dynasties, the three forms of writing, how to read the metanetta, the hieroglyphics, but they never talk about the priest and how powerful it was, the spells, the magic. What were the incantations? What were the herbs that they used? How did they astral travel? How did they explore death to create the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, the Pert Emaru, as it's called? They never get into that. Why? Why? Not that they don't believe in it. They don't want you exploring that. You see, they got to keep these ideas out of your head. This is why African civilization has been open to so much propaganda from Hollywood to vilify voodoo, to vilify non-Western religions. The main thing they have to keep you away from is a knowledge of self, that you are a god, and that at any time you can create a tulpa, a pendulum, or Egregore that has good intentions at heart. And when they realize that you are awakened to that power, they know they're done for. This is why the propaganda machine, which is an arm of the ruling elite, has to keep putting out these negative things. You see, the ruling elite does a very clever thing, and you got to give them, they're evil geniuses. You got to give them credit for it. In every roar, in every political debate and election, they control both sides. They control both sides. So no matter who wins, they win. And I always say fighting them is like fighting the Hydra. You cut off one head, there's another head there, another head there. Now, when I talk about these entities controlling us, I'm not talking about, oh, that person had a very negative energy, he must be controlled by a tulpa. No, you'll never feel it. You'll never know it. In fact, you could be controlled now and never even realize it. You could be going about your day-to-day thing and never realize that you're under the influence of a pendulum. The baby mama syndrome, women having babies out of wedlock by 2 or 3 different guys, that's a pendulum. Men wearing their pants down and showing the underwear, that's a pendulum. Hip hop is a pendulum. So I want you to understand that there's different levels of mind control. And don't get all cocky and high and mighty and thinking that I'm free. I'm not under any control. I don't feel like I'm controlled by a dark force. You would never know it. You wouldn't know it. It's the sheeple, the herd mentality. That's how you identify it. Are you going along with a certain group and there's no logic to what you're doing, yet you don't question it? Christian church is full of people who are under the control of an Egregore. Full of it. Because what they're learning defies logic. Defies logic. Yeah, I want to say you're correct. It's not all that bad, but it's at a point now. It's at a point now where the good rappers are being prevented from doing anything. And whether these rappers know it or not, they are reincarnated from ancient Kemet to practice in the Heteru clan of music and entertainment. So they are reincarnated coming back to this lifetime, and they were supposed to enlighten the world through the music, but the industry, being satanic as it is, made sure that that would not happen. So I want you to just take a moment to think about this. Keep it in mind. Because it's not so much about pulling the strings, but it's done without strings and through remote control, through what we perceive as culture fads. And these individuals like your Nicki Minaj, your who else is out there? Megan Thee Stallion, these individuals. They're very sick people. They're very sick people. They're not like you and I. They're very sick because they are propagating the satanic worship of these evil forces. But you don't see it yet, but you will, because they will make themselves known soon. The ruling elite will make itself known soon. And that's when there'll be hell on earth. But until then, I remember one of the first people who enlightened me to the ruling elite was a Christian minister. We were listening to his sermon and someone asked him, well, what do we do against the ruling elite? He said, all you can do is pray. All you can do is pray. I'm going to tell you that that's not going to do it. What I'm going to tell you is what you can do is awaken your God power. That's what your mission is. That's what you're supposed to do. Awaken your God power. And when you do that, they have no control. You become a seer. And you gain mastery over time and space. You stop playing this game where you think you're human. You stop playing this game where you go to university to learn. You don't learn a damn thing in the university. You learn by tapping into the Akashic records and downloading. Because all the so-called geniuses, your Einstein, except for Nikola Tesla, your Thomas Edison, Copernicus, all of them were flawed in their thinking because they think through the left brain only, which is space-time, linear space-time. That's all they can think about, is everything is linear. They don't think in cycles. They don't think metaphysically. And Nikola Tesla tried to educate them when he said that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you got to start thinking about things in a more metaphysical way. And we'll make more progress than we ever have. That's what he said. But you have accepted this system. You have accepted this system. You have been indoctrinated, which is not your fault because you were born in it, but you accept it in spite that the truth is brought before your eyes. And you go along with it, and you're not a warrior. Because a warrior would stand before Creflo Dollar and kick his ass. A warrior would stand before T.D. Jakes and kick his ass. And I mean that literally. No, I'm not inciting violence. I'm not saying go do that. Excuse me. I'm not saying to go do that. Don't do that. Okay. But you get the meaning of what I'm talking about. Why are these men allowed to do the things that they do without being challenged? Without going up to Creflo Dollar and say, we are gods. Gods don't need you. Joel Osteen, we are gods. We don't need you. You don't do that, do you? Go ahead. Allow Emmett Till's murderer to go free. Allow George Zimmerman to go free. Because that's what you're doing. And that's what you continue to do because you're controlled. You're mind controlled. You'll never really oppose the system. You'll never really oppose it. What did George Bush say? Was it George Bush? He said, excuse me, shock and awe. Shock and awe. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You don't deserve freedom because you haven't fought for it. You haven't fought for it. I don't mean physical. So please understand what I mean, like kick somebody's butt or fight. I don't mean physical. Because the first thing you need to do in the revolution is to become God. That's the first thing. Take care of yourself first. You know, like the plane is going to crash and they drop the airbags. They say, don't put your air mask on the baby, but put it on you first, then the baby. You become God first. Don't worry about everybody else. When you become God, then you go on a rampage like Muhammad did. You know, he killed people saying that if you don't accept Allah, I'm going to kill you. You know, that's what he did. The holy jihad. You go on a rampage and you say, I do not accept this government. I do not accept this president. I do not accept this religion, this church. I do not accept this university. And you push and you push and you push to resurrect Osir. Isn't that what Isis Aset did? She traveled the world after Set cut Osir up into 14 pieces. She had a mourning period, which is called the Tears of Osset. But after that, she stood up and she traveled the world to find the pieces, to put it back together again, and to resurrect him. And what else did she do? She said, if that doesn't work, I'm going to nurture and take care of my baby Haru to be one day king, to be ready to fight Set and regain the throne. Are we fighting? No, we're not fighting. Do we have the spirit of Set within us, Isis? No, we do not. We're passive. We're passive. So do some thinking. Do some thinking. What do you think, Shucky? Thank you all for attending. I really, really appreciate it. There's a saying, and it's so apropos. May you live in interesting times. Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. If you get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma'an Tehudi. Ma'ant is the beautiful goddess Heteru, Hathor. Until the next broadcast, Amun Ra.